I do think it's interesting that the court here was held to a higher, or the court is going to hold law enforcement to a higher standard than they had to use in this case. In this case, they didn't just go willy-nilly to the cellular provider and say, turn over your data. They did have legal authority behind them. They used the Stored Communications Act as their foundation for saying we have authority to obtain this data for you. But that is a lower standard, and did not require a judge to vet the law enforcement claim that they needed the evidence as does a warrant requiring probable cause. Probable cause basically means that the evidence that the law enforcement officers are seeking is likely to provide evidence that a crime took place. So they have a fairly, it's not that hard to get a warrant, but it's a higher standard to meet than the one they did in this case. And what seemed to be really important to Chief Justice Roberts, writing for the majority here, was, again, this recognition, and we've seen this pattern in a few different cases from the Supreme Court over the last several years, this recognition that technology has fundamentally changed the way we need to think about the Fourth Amendment and the way that our lives work now. I mean, they basically acknowledged that a cell phone is a necessity of modern life and we're all carrying them around, and yet we have not forfeited our expectations of privacy merely because of the way these devices that we're carrying work. So I think that's an important note for the court to hit here. What did you think, Lisa?
Well, I'm just reading the headlines. Like Mike, I haven't worked my way through the reasoning of the entire opinion, but my reaction is generally one of relief, but also feeling like it was a close call, no pun intended. It's very important that the Supreme Court interprets the Fourth Amendment and expectations of privacy in light of current prevailing norms. And the more that we're dependent on our mobile devices, the more important it is to keep a balancing of certain safeguards. I mean, in reading some of the other news stories in the rundown, it strikes me that just requiring a warrant to obtain physical location records is not a tremendously burdensome standard. I mean, all kinds of federal judges are ordering all kinds of things that have just monumental impacts on large swaths of our population. So I feel a sense of relief that I think that this is the right outcome, and I do look forward to reading the entire opinion.